Today, we're gonna try and explain everything we know about the characters and the timeline from Knights of Guinevere, which had some fans, including myself, a bit confused with the first episode. This is due to the show not taking place just in the present, but having large parts of its pilot in the past, with some of us not quite realizing this on our first watch through. So let's break it down, but be sure to subscribe real quick because we got more Knights of Guinevere videos coming all week. Now, Knights of Guinevere is about a theme park android mascot named Guinevere who keeps trying to escape for mysterious reasons. This premise is meant to remind you of Disneyland, where actual humans dress up as Disney princesses to talk to guests in a very robotic fashion. With that in mind, the opening scene didn't focus on Guinevere so much as it does her creators, the founder of Park Planet Orville and his daughter Olivia. Olivia's name is meant to sound like Orville, with the intent being to emphasize Olivia as the successor of Orville, a role we would normally think of as going to the firstborn son, who is often named after his father. The very first scene demonstrates this, with Orville lighting up the park to show Olivia, promising her that she would watch over it one day, hinting at his eventual death, with Orville seemingly not being alive in the present timeline. In this scene from the past, Olivia looks rather sad, or rather emotionless, and instead, the emotions we see mostly come with Gwen, who tries to escape. As Olivia explains here, however, she tries to escape a lot, and they always bring her back so that Olivia can fix her. This was rather mysterious, as I'm sure a lot of us are wondering why a little girl is the one in charge of fixing Guinevere, and she seems to be doing it in such a dangerously hands-on way. In the scene, we see that Olivia isn't afraid to touch Gwen's robotic intestines and get blue blood all over her, which other signs from the show and its early teasers indicate is rather dangerous and toxic. In this scene, Orville hints at something terrible and tragic having happened to Olivia before, and for a while I thought it was possible that she actually died and is now herself a robot. But later in the episode, in the present, we see that Olivia continues to age into an older woman. Originally, in my previous video, I had thought that Olivia and old Olivia were different people, and I thought this older Olivia was supposed to be the younger Olivia's mother, but the end credits clarify that they are the same person at different ages, ruling out the idea that young Olivia became a robot after some tragic accident, though she may still have some mechanical enhancements in some way. Part of the reason I was confused originally was I had mistakenly misinterpreted a photo in older Olivia's room where we can see young Olivia pictured with Orville as well as a mother whose face is obscured, and I had mistakenly thought that older Olivia was meant to be that mother. But instead, the mother's face is obscured because we haven't seen her yet and maybe one day will. But this is just Olivia herself long after her father has passed away, where she is still held on to the strange obsession with the Guinevere robot. Orville is an interesting character who seems to be dead in the present, and he's clearly meant to represent Disney as a corporation, though a lot of what we associate with Disney as a corporation actually happened after Disney's death, with his studio growing far beyond what he had originally envisioned. This inspiration for his character makes him an evil man in many ways, with how he has destroyed Park Planet for the sake of profit, though we also see an interesting, albeit maybe shallow form of love for his daughter. Of course, with Olivia being named after Orville, he seems to not imagine her as having her own identity, treating her a bit like a theme park android that he can create a role for her to fill for the sake of his legacy. He also doesn't seem to care enough about her as a person to actually try and help her through the traumatic experience she had, as he urges her to just forget it. This accident likely had to do with an initial touching of this blue blood, which we know to be dangerous to others. In early teaser images for the show, we saw that there were legal issues the park had faced because of how the blue chemical had affected others. And in the show, we see there was a controversy when a prankster tried to cut an android Gwen's hair, likely leading to some of that blue fluid getting out and infecting others. This blue chemical doesn't seem to kill you, and Olivia goes on to live a long life, but she has in some way been greatly changed by it. And while she does retain the ability to age and get older, a lot more of her might be mechanical than we think. In the family photo in older Olivia's room, we even see that at some point Olivia had darker hair, with this perhaps meaning that her hair had to be synthetically replaced after some sort of accident. One really strong hint I should have noticed that this first scene takes place deep in the past is that it opens with Olivia in one of these beautiful old-fashioned frames, a visual cue used throughout the episode to let us know when we're looking into the past as if we're looking into a photograph. And it's with this same visual cue after meeting Olivia and then Gwen herself that we went on to meet Andie and Frankie. Andie and Frankie are characters we mostly explore as adults in the pilot, but for the first scene walking out of their picture frames, they're just two children trying to enjoy a day at Park Planet. We would later learn that Frankie and Andie couldn't afford real tickets and had to sneak into the park. Even when inside, they had to use a special machine to trick a crane game into thinking they inserted money, as they had no money to waste on trying to get a plush of Guinevere. This is the sad reality of Park Planet, where outside of the floating theme park islands meant to feel like a fairy tale kingdom, the locals live a life just trying to scrape by. The theme park is basically the entire economy for the planet, but none of the jobs there pay a real wage to any locals, and thus there isn't any excess money to circulate into people's pockets for entertainment. Instead, most of the visitors for the theme park come from other planets entirely, with intergalactic tickets being something that locals could never hope to afford. It's while sneaking into the theme park, however, that Andie and Frankie meet Guinevere, with Frankie having a particularly magical experience. Both Frankie and Andie are clearly huge fans of Guinevere as kids, seeing her world as a magical place that they would like to escape to. But Frankie in particular has some issues with sort of fantastical thinking. It's normal for a kid to feel a sense of magic when meeting a theme park mascot in a place like Disneyland, but Frankie has made it into adulthood with what others might call serious delusions. On the surface, it doesn't seem too terrible, as it's just her own consciousness trying to present its thoughts to her in a unique way. Specifically by having her own thoughts said to her by magical fairy tale creatures like those that would be found on Park Planet. Little animal sidekicks who would normally be talking to Gwen. This doesn't have to be an unhealthy way to process your thoughts outright, but for Frankie, it already hints at her trying to escape from her reality, which can be dangerous when you don't do so in a serious way. Frankie has to have thoughts about dealing with the problems in front of her, but as long as they're coming from talking animals inside of her imagination, it can make her feel like she's living the magical life that she wants. The problem is that these visualizations also push her towards doing things that aren't the best for everyone, even herself. You see, after seeing Andie and Frankie as children, we flash forward to the present where Andie is now working as an engineer at Park Planet, and Frankie's just scraping by, manufacturing merch to be sold at the park, and scrounging for metal to use to make even more of it. Even with these multiple jobs, they both still struggle to get by, with Andie being treated like a sellout for taking her job, despite it not paying much more than any other job out there. With Frankie, however, instead of imagining a way to get better life in general, she imagines a way to just get deeper and deeper into the Park Planet system, becoming another cog in its machines to enjoy what little she can through it. This would be without much difference to her pay apparently, but just with an opportunity to feel like she's part of the magic that she got to feel as a kid. It's because of this that when she finds a Guinevere android, she wants to fix it and get a pretty low-level job instead of selling it to make herself and the people around her a lot more wealthy. This is in particular the character Sparkie, a mysterious older man who acts like he's in charge of Frankie, far beyond just being a boss of hers on a boat where they search for anything they can use to melt down for merch. Sparkie was a wild wrench thrown into the middle of the pilot where he gets into a fight with Frankie over the android, and it's revealed that Frankie's missing teeth were actually removed by Sparkie as punishment for disobeying him in the past. This doesn't stop him from making a deal with Andie and Frankie when they fight for one, but it set up a really mysterious and twisted character with no exact explanation of how he actually relates to Frankie. He says he can't let her get away with things just because of who she is, hinting at her being related to him maybe, but he doesn't exactly seem to be her father either. And finally, there's Gwen. Despite being the title character, Gwen is not the most focused on character in the show. And even when it comes time for her big battle, most of it was happening on the other side of some elevator doors, basically off screen. Our Gwen is just one of many Guinevere theme park androids, but the hints in the show point towards our Gwen being Android 0, the original and perhaps most flawed yet most sophisticated of the Gwens. This android was seen to be made for Olivia or even by Olivia, with the intent of Gwen being a sort of proxy princess for Olivia to live through. It would make sense that as an android to be Olivia's companion, that this model would have a specialized artificial intelligence powering it. But whether by that or some funky wonky magic that they reveal later, our Gwen appears to be developing beyond her intended programming and is trying to escape. In the episode, we do get a look inside of Gwen's head where her perspective has everything programmed to look like a beautiful space kingdom, where she is looking fine even when she's falling apart. And wonderfully, Gwen cares more about people in her park than anything else it seems. Even when one of Olivia's own giant robots comes to retrieve Gwen, it's only when she needs to protect Frankie and Andie that she gets into a battle with the robot. But so far, this is everything I know about the characters. But now that this pilot is out, I'm sure more and more of their information is going to start surfacing, and we'll be sure to include those in future theory videos. So subscribe so you don't miss it. If you want to talk more about Knights of Guinevere, be sure to join us in the Cartoon Universe Discord server as well. I'll put a link in the pinned comment down below. And finally, if you haven't seen our previous Knights of Guinevere video yet, or our Owl House video, please go check them out. The Owl House video is a really long deep dive on the mythology that inspired the show, which was also created by Dana Terrace. So you can see a lot of hints at what's going to happen in Knights of Guinevere through the mythology of the Owl House as well. See you guys there.